to be like a review session. Okay. So, your literacy autobiography, your final draft was really good. I enjoyed reading it. Like obviously I already knew all the ideas and the anecdotes that you had, but definitely I saw a lot of improvements from the first one. So I'm just still gonna go over some of the things that some like tiny errors or some comments that you could apply to your future writing. Yeah, okay. So overall, I really liked your introduction, and I think it did a really good, it serves its purpose as an intro. Like the first sentence was definitely an attention grabber, and then the rest of it, you had a very clear thesis statement, and it was a good way to navigate throughout your essay. Like the way that it is right now is perfectly fine, but if I were to if there was a way to improve this just a tiny bit more, I think and this is totally optional because it's perfectly fine the way it is, but for essays such as the one that we wrote this week, like the autobiography essay, because it's so personal, I would say it might be better to have a more engaging or descriptive first sentence, just so that you can grab the reader's attention. But just as an academic paper, this is fine. Yeah, but that was just like a small thing. Yeah, and then, yeah, going on to the second paragraph, yeah, your first sentence was really good. Yeah, the only thing would be like punctuation. I think you were missing a comma, and then yeah, like this kind of depends on your teacher, like on your writing teacher. Like I'm not too specific about it, but like if you see like some teachers that want to make your lives harder do this. Like if you have like different quotations like here and here, like they might do something about it. In most cases, no, but like if you're really unlucky, so I'm just like, yeah, if you could just be careful to use like this version throughout. Yeah, that was just a very minor thing. Yeah, and then here, I think you didn't have this in the previous essay. You added it in your final draft, and I really liked how you added examples. Yeah. Yeah, and oh, another thing is the sentence over here. My mom told me that blah blah blah. It's totally fine to include this if the fact that your mother told you this is significant in the story. But just based on what I'm seeing here, like I might be totally wrong, but like just based on what I'm seeing here, I see that it's more of like your mom here doesn't really have a like a role in literacy. It's more of it's helping you remember that incident, if I read it correctly. And so I think you can just start with like in my class in kindergarten. Yeah. Yeah. And then moving on to the next page. Yeah, I really liked your US English story as well. Yeah, the only thing I already wrote here, comment number 5. Yeah, like in academic essays, you don't really want to use the word stuff. It looks unprofessional, but yeah. And also totally, yeah, it's very uncommon to use the words like totally, or as you can like see here, very, quite, really, totally, already, fairly, actually. Like usually in academic settings, we don't use these words because they're unnecessary, and it kind of makes it look like you're just adding it to add more words. But like obviously sometimes you do need it. Sometimes it is necessary if you want to emphasize something. But I think for in this case, it's okay if you just leave out the word totally. And then moving on to the final paragraph. Tiny grammar change that I made is, I think in the original you wrote, it is much more comfortable speaking English than before, but instead of it, I think it'll be better to use the word I because you feel comfortable. Yeah, so that's just like a tiny thing. And then, yeah, like overall, the conclusion was also, I really liked how it served the purpose of both concluding your two stories and your take on literacy. I think if you really, I really liked your last sentence, by the way. So like if you want this sentence to shine, because it's already a really good sentence, I think you could elaborate a little bit more and make that your conclusion paragraph. Yeah, so like I wrote here, yeah, it's like you talk about your experience and then you just have your opinion on in one sentence at the very end, and you don't really elaborate or explain. So if you could add a little bit more and talk about like what you mean by this. Yeah, again, everyone has a different story of literacy, but sometimes hearing other stories. Yeah, how does hearing other stories help you find another way to develop your literacy? Yeah. How does that help? Yeah, if you could answer that question in like another paragraph, that would have made it a bit more cohesive. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. But overall, I really liked your essay, like I already said, and I think this is the second essay we wrote together. I know we did a rewrite for this one, so obviously I think this one was a bit more well polished, but yeah, like overall I see a lot of improvement. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next essay that you'll write. Yeah. Okay, do you have any questions regarding your essay?
No.
Yeah, okay, cool. And how was your comparison and contrast homework for your LA class?
Was I don't oh he didn't I mean you teach just I thought we were gonna do something with it, but apparently we didn't.
Oh.
So it was kinda I was like, oh gosh dang it. It would have been a chance to shine my like beautiful idea. And we didn't do anything with it. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. If you have if you have anything that you want to talk about class at school, yeah, or honestly anything, yeah, I'm always open to it. And yeah, that's good. Okay, then let's move on to the homework from last week. You did tell me that you had a very tiring week, so I'm not sure if you were able to do it now.
I know, I was like literally, we had one LA homework and we had to make a theme and then do like compare and contrast and everything. But I was like literally thinking like of the theme for like 3 hours. I was writing, delete for like 3 hours. And I slept at 3 because I couldn't really think of theme. And I didn't even finish it, so I had to finish it before, like literally like 3 hours before class. Yeah, so I didn't really have time to do it.
Oh, that sounds really stressful. Yeah, no, it's okay. That does sound really stressful. Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
That's totally fine because yeah, like I said, today's a really slow day. It's like a review sesh, so let's go over it together. So last class, we learned about, do you remember what we learned?
It was like the simile, hyperbole,
Mm-hmm.
personification,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that stuff, and some, wasn't it like sensory words?
Yeah.
Sensory
Yeah.
describe something, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so basically we learned how to write descriptive essays. Description was the title for the class. Yeah, and you're right, you got most of it. Like sensory expressions and then figure of speech, metaphor, personification, hyperbole, etc., etc. Yeah, and I originally had this essay planned for homework because I think it's not as lively as the text that we discussed last class. If you remember, we talked about baseball. There was a short like paragraph on baseball, if you remember.
Yeah.
And then we also learned, we also did the chicken and dumpling overindulgence essay. The Hiroshima Museum is a lot more serious than those topics. Like obviously because it's talking about the writer who visited a museum and her, and this is more of like her reflective essay. So, okay, since we have time today, why don't we just go over the essay and the questions together in class? And I think next week, there's another essay homework reading / brainstorming homework. And so, to make sure that you don't have too much homework for next week, let's make sure we can get this done, most of the stuff done, so that you can have less homework. Yeah, okay. So, okay, let's do this. Before we start, a little information about this essay. It's 2 weeks ago we learned about time order, so like chronological order where we write in the order of time of like what happens. And in this essay, it's written in spatial order, meaning that the essay is organized in a way where according to the space or the place that the author visits. And so because it's a reflective essay of a visit to a museum, the author walks around a museum and she writes about like what she saw and what she feels. And so okay, so I'll give you some time, a couple minutes to read this, and before we go on to the questions, I'll probably ask what the thesis is. So if you could identify the thesis, that would be awesome. Yeah, so it's just this one chunk of writing over here.
Is the thesis statement like I don't know, the author going to the museum and looking at
Mm-hmm.
the displays?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so what do you think the museum was showing? If you could just say it in like one sentence.
Like the things get damaged by the nuclear bomb
Mm-hmm.
in Hiroshima.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um yeah, so by describing some of the objects found that are displayed in the museum, we can, like, the author saw how the museum, the author was basically talking about how the museum shows the effect of the Hiroshima bomb on the Japanese people that were living in the area at that time. Yeah. The reason I brought this essay as an example is because I think for the previous, like, in life, there will be a lot of situations where you'll have to write an essay, and I think a reflective essay is something that you might be asked to write a lot. So I'm talking about like beyond school, like after you graduate, like in college or even after college. The types of writing that you'll do is like very specific, and I thought this might be helpful because it's just something that not only has writing strategies that were mentioned in class, but also uses a lot of tactics that can be used in future writing as well. Yeah. So anyway, let's move on to the questions. So okay, so let's just do the questions about the reading and writer strategies. And there was one additional like long answer question, but we'll skip that, I think. Okay, so let's start with number 1. What do the exhibits tell you about the effect of an atomic bomb?
A lot of things got damaged,
Mm-hmm.
and one girl, I think, she
Mm-hmm.
died after
Mm-hmm.
12 hours and left her like coat or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of watches that
Mm-hmm.
belonged to the people who died there.
Yep. Yep. Okay, that was good. Then the second question, which is, you didn't already mention watches, but what is the significance of all the watches being stopped at exactly 8:15? What do you think that means?
The bomb hit the Hiroshima at 8:15.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, then let's move on to the writer strategies. What is the main idea of the paragraph? So I guess we already went over the thesis, but do you think it's stated or implied? So was it directly written or was it indirectly implied?
I think it's implied.
Mm-hmm. And what makes you think so?
It didn't really say. Oh, actually, it didn't really say in
Mm-hmm.
one sentence that
Mm-hmm.
the author like the author didn't really like summarize what she did in like what she saw and like what she saw in one sentence.
Mm-hmm.
She just wrote everything down, so there was no thesis statement, I think.
Yeah. That was, yeah, very accurate. Good. Then number 2, is the paragraph objective or subjective or both?
No, I was objective and subjective.
Well, sorry.
What was objective and
Oh,
subjective?
yeah. So we talked about objective and subjective in our second class, I think, second or third class. So this was like not from last week. But so objective means that like, remember the Harlem is not Manhattan essay where the writer was just observing and he didn't actually give direct opinions on it. Whereas like the chicken dumpling essay that we read last week, where the writer was talking about how much they love their aunt's soup, it's very subjective because they're talking about like their thoughts and their opinions. And so, yeah, objective means you're just observing and you don't say your thoughts or opinions. Subjective means that you do say your opinions. Yeah.
I think it's both.
Mm-hmm.
Because like for the subjective, the author say it's neither ideological or historical.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of like putting the author's emotion in it.
Mm-hmm.
But except for that sentence, like everything was just description of what was there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those that's a really good example. Yeah. So we do see the author's opinion somewhat here, but here it is sort of implied like like we talked about in the previous questions. But overall it's just description, objective description. Yeah. Okay, the last question for the strategy is, again, identifying imagery words. So, Oshita-chan, what descriptive details does the writer give about Oshita-chan and her clothing?
She was wearing blue sleeve blouse.
Mm-hmm.
Except for its color blue. That's so specific.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was a half mile away from the bomb. But she still died. It's kind of sad. Like,
it is really sad.
I mean, half a mile is not that. Oh yeah, it's not that far away.
It's really not that far. Yeah. It is very tragic. Did they say how old she was? No, right? Just a schoolgirl. Yeah, just a schoolgirl. So we can infer that, yeah, she was pretty young. She was wearing like a blouse. So it's not clearly stated, but we could infer that maybe she was like on her way to school or something like that because of the way she was dressed. But yeah, it's
like the school uniform or something.
Yeah. So yeah, this isn't in the questions, but do you think we did talk about how this part of the essay is objective. So we're just learning about what she was wearing or what the author is like seeing, like the blouse or the melted pin and everything. So it is objective. But do you think it's sort of do you think it acts as a device of showing the author's opinion or main idea?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, this descriptions like brings up like some sad mood. Yes, which might like strengthen the author's main idea or something.
Yeah. So yeah, like sometimes in cases like this, you don't need like overly opinionated words and phrases to convey what you're trying to say. Sometimes even the facts alone are enough. In this case, it evokes sad emotions. And it does that really well, even if the author isn't saying, oh, like, I'm so sad. Oh, this is like so tragic. But like already the reader feels that way. And yeah, I think, yeah, like a good and effective writing does that. It brings emotions. Yeah. Okay. So I was going to ask you to do a short writing essay assignment where you also describe a narrative paragraph. But we're gonna skip that for now, and we're gonna jump right into classification and division. But I do think we'll have time today because okay, so let's just quickly do this. And then I was originally going to assign the reading for homework, but I think we can do like half of it, and then we can do you can finish the latter half for homework. Okay, so classification and division. So classification is when you take many of the same type of thing and organize them into groups and categories. So like clothing, school papers, presidents, recipes, music are some examples of things. You might have like, for example, a way to classify something would be like in music, where you have different genres. So there's like classical music, jazz music, rock and roll, etc., etc. So you're taking things that are already individual things, and you're trying to sort them into different groups. And then you have division, which is where you take one thing, like here, example, a suit, and divide them into different components of characteristics. So for example, if we take the word suit, if we imagine what a suit looks like, there's a jacket, there's pants, there can be vest. And so you're taking that one suit and you're taking them apart. And so classification and division, you can find that in not only it's very rare to find a piece of writing that's just like solely has the purpose of classifying things. But like the example that I have today, which is a New York Times article, there is the strategy. It's classification is a strategy that the writer uses to come across their point. So the recurring theme that you might have noticed so far is like the writing strategies that we learn. So it's very rare to find an essay that has just one writing strategy, and like for the purpose of that writing or that essay to only be to write that strategy. It's more of like the author has something to say, they have a strong argument, and they're using the strategy because they think it's the most effective way to convey their idea. And so for the upcoming weeks, we're actually going to do a academic research paper, and we're gonna start brainstorming this week and next week. And then next week, we're going to do comparison and contrast. And after we have some writing strategies tools ready for us, we're going to do a short review. And then I'm going to lets you work on your project. And so during the first class, I think you told me that you're interested in biology. Is that still true? Yeah. So I thought it might be fun if you could choose a topic in biology and write an essay about it. And the topic is like open and free for now. But we're gonna do the brainstorming later. And I think especially for more academic and scientific essays, classification and division is definitely used more often. And so, yeah, like that is something I can use. Okay, so let's see.